So you're probably here because you wanna play Diablo 4 Sever Necromancer, but don't really know how to build around this core skill. Well, it's one of my favorite core skills in the game, so here I'm trying to... What do you mean trying to Zeiss? Here I'm completely obliterating this Nightmare Vault. It's tier 75 because the gauntlet difficulty will be tier 70. That's level 124 monsters. So we're gonna just keep calm and reap because Sever rules. And yeah, let's see. Let me show you how I play Sever, and you can draw your own conclusions whether this build is for you or not. Yay! Oglyphs leveled up. You're probably wondering who the fuck is this guy and what does he want to show me? Now, first of all, my name is Svetoslav. Friends call me Zeiss, especially those who know me since I was a kid. That was like in the 80s, right? Anyway, yeah, I'm that ancient. So, I'm here on D4 Armory, and this season 3 on the hardcore Necromancer ladder. My characters are rank 4, that's the first one. And the second one is rank 24. You can see they're all called Zeiss, obviously. This gap is because I was farming all the Uber uniques before I leveled up the second character. Yeah, I have them, except the staff, because I don't play sorcerer, I don't give a damn about this stuff at all. And on the second page, you can see that my Sever Necromancer is ranked 32. That's hardcore. I don't even have the softcore renown, so, you know, hope that helps to kind of give you an idea who I am and what I do. And there's also this thing that I play on PlayStation 5, and I've played on PlayStation 5 for quite a lot of hours, as we can see here on the top right of the screen. I'm gonna just hide myself a bit here. So you probably saw it. I have a platinum trophy of this game, so this probably should answer your question: who the fuck is this guy and what the hell he is going to talk about and show me today? So that's what I do, and let's see how I play Sever. So these are the three characters I showed you on D4 Armory. The first one is a blood build, the second one is a bone build, and this is the Sever guy. I played Sever in season 1, and I decided I should play it again because I really like the skill. So let's log in with this character and see what it's about. You can let me know in the comments below if you would like to see guides like this on my other characters, because I only released theory crafting videos. Same goes for this one, but because Sever is actually, like I said, one of my favorite skills in the game, I decided to extend the theory video with this video. So I'm gonna talk about the gear first, because it's a really important thing. And let's start with the helmet here. I have a really crappy helmet here actually. Total armor could be higher, but it's not necessary. Lightning resist here because I need lightning resist. Could be any other resistance, but probably you should avoid shadow and poison, right? If that makes sense. I will explain why in a bit. It's mostly because of the ring and the Paragon Board, so we'll get there. You can have here protecting or torturous aspect, either or maybe also the Juggernaut. But for lower tiers, I suggest to use Might instead of Juggernaut. So the important thing on the helmet is life, total armor, decrepify, and some resistance that you need. Moving on to the chest piece. It's really important to not have total armor on it. and same goes for the pants. We get life here, damage reduction from close enemies, and damage reduction from shadow damage over time affected enemies. It doesn't matter if you imprint the torturers, like I said, on the helmet or the chest or the pants. Doesn't matter, right? And of course sockets with rubies, right, for extra life, because this is quite the problem for this build. Let's move to the gloves. Really important to have high critical strike chance and chance to restore resource, and also lucky hit, and of course the core skill Sever. Because such kind of gloves are really easy to get, I've decided to imprint here the drop only aspect of decay. Right. I explained why. Pants. Now we don't need total armor here either, but it would be great if the implicit modifier here provides barrier when injured, not movement speed. So we need again life, damage reduction from close enemies, damage reduction from shadow dot affected enemies. And here I have Juggernaut and I have separate pair of pants which are similar for easier content with the aspect of might. So why is this? Because for level 100 monsters we need like 9.5k armor, right? So that's mostly the open world bosses and such, right? And for the nightmare dungeons, let's say tier 100, we need like 13.5k armor in order for the armor to be effective and provide us with 85% physical damage reduction. This is the cap, as you probably already know. On the boots I have the build enabling Graves of the Empty Tomb. This build cannot go without them. Have in mind. So aim for a optimal item here, like optimal rolls. The higher the better, obviously. And the more important things here are lucky hit chance with shadow damage and damage reduction from shadow damage over time affected enemies. The rest could be lower. These two should be, if you have like multiple boots of these and you're wondering which ones to actually equip and upgrade to maximum, please use the ones with lucky hit chance with shadow damage and damage reduction from shadow dot affected enemies. For the weapon, we are having here a wand because of the implicit lucky hit chance, which have also the affixes all stats, really important for Paragon Board additional bonuses from the rare nodes, really important. Intelligence for increasing the damage and resistances. Vulnerable damage, but you can also use it with damage over time. And also another must-have core skill damage. I'm using here the aspect of Grasping Veins. I would not recommend to play this build with Doombringer, even if you have it. I already have it, I tried it, and it kinda sucks. The only benefit of Doombringer here on this slot would be the additional life, which you don't necessarily need. The amulet could be kinda hard to get. Movement speed, damage reduction, essence cost reduction, and ranks to gloom, really important. Also, the aspect which we are going to imprint here is also really important, and I suggest you have it at the maximum. It's called the aspect of the damned, and it's the main reason why I'm not using the glyph amplify. That might sound stupid, but when I get to the Paragon board, I'll explain why in further detail. The first ring that I'm using here is Zaphau's Corroded Signet. Yes, it's Zaphau, because you say xylophone, not xylophone, right? You can ask a linguist. Pretty sure that's what they're gonna say. And the next ring I have here, the Ring of the Sacrilegious Soul. It's a ring which any Necromancer should use. It's pretty obvious, I guess, that I have socketed here some gems to cap my resistances. And I am using here also a defensive focus, if that makes sense, because two of the affixes are defensive ones. Damage reduction from shadow dot affected enemies and damage reduction while fortified. Also, the other important thing here is essence cost reduction and lucky hit chance. The cool thing about the focus is that its implicit modifier is cooldown reduction, which is going to tremendously help our build to constantly apply massive crowd control in order to actually survive and destroy things. So I guess that covers the gear. It's a very highly demanding build gear-wise, and also player skill-wise, because it's a extremely high action per minute build. Unlike other builds, which are easy, like Bone Spear, Blood Surge, or whatever, where you just push a button and the screen dies. Here things are different. You actually need to be skillful to play this build. At least this is how I feel when playing it. I'm gonna talk about the Book of the Dead here. I have sacrificed here the Reapers to increase my damage. But if you have problems with resistances, you can sacrifice defenders temporarily until you fix this problem. Especially while leveling, and especially if you try to clear content which your character is not ready yet to do so, right, to clear. On the skeletal mages, I have here sacrificed the cold ones in order to get more damage to vulnerable. This is more of a single target oriented thing when you want to do bosses. If you feel you have essence problems, you can of course sacrifice the shadow mages temporarily. That's what I would do. Right, moving to the golems, of course we're gonna sacrifice here the iron golem, because critical strike chance is really important for this build. Let's move on to the skill tree. So, the skill tree in this build in general is kinda creepy, because it's kind of a mixed build. You have to stack critical strike chance and damage alongside damage over time, which might sound crazy, but actually the direct damage that you deal could be aided by the damage over time that you deal, and you can deal more damage to damage over time affected enemies, and you can have additional damage reduction from those enemies, like blood blisters included. So the strange thing here, which you probably gonna ask yourself, is why am I going to have to stack critical strike chance on a damage over time oriented build? Well, because it's not really a damage over time oriented build after all. We have here Reap, which is shadow damage, not shadow damage over time. I'm using it with the upgrade Enhanced Reap and Acolyte's Reap. Really important, especially to constantly pump those corpse explosions and those corpse tendrils. Of course, also Sever to the maximum and Enhanced Sever, and of course the Paranormal Sever. Since it doesn't make enemies vulnerable every time, like for example Bone Spear does, we're going to use Corpse Tendrils, but I'll get to that in a moment. I have here next Hewed Flesh and Corpse Explosion 1 point, and Blighted Corpse Explosion after the upgrade of Enhanced. I have only 1 point to Grim Harvest, and maximum to Fueled by Death. Then I have Death's Embrace, both curses, and Iron Maiden is upgraded with Abhorrent in order to heal us. This is really important, especially for more difficult content. Of course, the Amplified Damage and Decrepify with Enhanced. And let me discuss this now a bit. Why I'm using Abhorrent here? Well, for easier stuff, And for bosses, this one is actually better because it can reduce the cooldown of tendrils, which drastically increases the critical strike chance and damage. And again, Sever is not overtime, it is shadow damage. It's burst damage, direct shadow damage, unlike the desecrated grounded leaves and corpse explosions miasma. So, if you wanna clear higher tiers, I would probably also recommend Horrid Decrepify, because usually you can hit enemies once and let the Horrid Decrepify and the dots from the corpse explosion finish them off. Of course, here we next have corpse tendrils with enhanced and plagued, so we can keep making those enemies vulnerable. And I also have here Inspiring Leader for increased attack speed, Standalone because we're not using minions, and Memento Mori because we sacrifice both skeletons and skeleton mages. And of course, one of the most important things here is Shadow Blight. The thing about Shadow Blight is that the damage is increased by 100% multiplicatively of your shadow damage over time bonus, as you can read here. And you can see mine has quite a lot. It could go higher, but it's not really necessary. That's what I think. And lastly, I'm gonna say this last because this is usually the last thing I get on the skill tree, is 1 point to Unliving Energy and Imperfectly Balanced. Obviously, those shadow passives, they should be also used, especially Gloom and Terror. I decided to go with 2 points on Cripple and Darkness here, because especially for more difficult content, for higher tiers, being able to stun them from multiple sources is always a plus, especially when large groups of enemies come toward you, which is usually happening at the end rooms of vaults or in the intermission areas of nightmare dungeons. So this is where Crippling Darkness comes into play, no matter that Corpse Tendrils can stun and slow, and that Decrepify can also stun and slow. Right. It's, I think, really good idea to also have it on all kind of darkness damage that you deal from darkness skills. This is Sever and Reap. I guess that covers the skill tree. So let's move on to the insane Paragon board. You will notice here that I'm not using a glyph which increases the boost from these nodes here, because you can get 3 damage nodes and you can get 3 armor nodes, and of course the additional magic nodes here. Let me tell you why this is not stupid in this season. Mostly because of the Juggernaut aspect, because you can get a lot of armor from it. And the other key part here is you can actually get more damage if you use more intelligent points around this glyph compared to what you can get from this one. Or if you use, for example, Amplify here. Not to mention, Amplify is conditional, no matter that we curse. The important thing here is that you place the aspect of the damned on the amulet, because it will provide 75% up to 75% increased damage when you curse with both curses. So I hope that covers it and why it's more important. Right. Let's move on to the second board, and of course it is Wither. I am using here the glyph Abyssal in order to stack my damage additionally, and also to increase my shadow resistance, which I don't really care about that much because of this. Then I'm moving here to the right to get Scent of Death. This is probably a board which Necromancers can't go without. So probably any Necromancer build uses this board. I'm sorry. Let's see. Let me just full screen this thing. So I am using here the Scourge glyph to increase my shadow damage over time, which drastically increases my shadow blight damage and my corpse explosion damage. And those are the things which finish the enemies off for me. Then I moved to this board, which is a board which no Necromancer using corpse explosion can go without. And it's obvious I didn't pick many things here. We can actually reduce these resistance nodes, like respec them, and also use them here with darkness or here with scourge. If you manage to cap your resistances, please do that instead. Or if you deal with easier content. Let me show you. In my case, I have a little bit less cold resistance, which is kind of the least dangerous elemental damage, in my opinion. The most dangerous are fire and lightning. The rest are not that hard to deal with. Okay, moving on. Then what I would recommend is to get to this board. It's called Bloodbath, and use here Exploit. It is especially because of the additional bonus of this glyph. Dealing damage to a vulnerable enemy increases your damage. This is really important, but you can also use Territorial here, especially for really difficult combat and difficult content and very high tiers, because the build is not using a shield and it's not blocking, no matter that the focus that I showed has 2 defensive affixes. Okay, the last glyph is Desecration. Desecration is really important because of the boots. And the other thing about Desecration, which is really cool, is this, right? While standing in your desecrated ground, you deal 15% multiplicatively increased shadow damage, and this is usually how you fight, and the boots will help you leave desecrated ground. So you will use Sever and keep kiting forward, like you saw me do earlier. And then you can use like any skill, right? And you will deal way more damage. I guess that covers the Paragon Board. Let's talk about the Seneschal right now, the Seneschal Construct. I am using here Focus Fire with Arcing Support, Dusk Support, and Breaking Support. Breaking Support is really cool, and I think that Focus Fire, when arcing and dealing shadow damage because of the Dusk Support, could be really cool because it also activates Shadow Blight. And it can also, because of the breaking support, it makes enemies vulnerable for you, because your sources of vulnerable are not so good, because Sever doesn't make enemies vulnerable every time, and you could only rely on corpse tendrils, but this problem is kinda solved with Focus Fire here. You may have noticed we don't have anything barrier related on the gear, so that's why I'm using here Protect, which is a really important governing stone in this case, because it is with Fortify support, Safeguard support, and Duration support. So it will not only provide barrier and a lot of it, but it will also fortify, and it can provide additional damage reduction with increased duration. This is why I'm also having here this board, right? Bloodbath. And we can get additional damage here when fortified. And this is why you should use Bloodbath before this one, before Bone Graft, right? Especially if you can get the Dexterity to get this bonus. It would be really cool. Also, now that you heard about it, right, it's probably time that you expect me to showcase how I play it. Well, I can tell you how I played. I applied both curses, I used Reap, and by walking through the desecrated ground, by using Sever actually, I walk through the desecrated ground and keep reaping to finish enemies off. But I'm not going to give you all the candy here. If you want to see me play this build and others, or if you want me to do more guides like this, and if you would like me to improve something in this kind of video, you can let me know in the comments, or you can come to one of my live streams and interact with me. So, I don't know. I hope I didn't sound too arrogant to you. It was not really the goal here. Of course, I just wanted to show you how I play Sever, and I hope you enjoyed it. I have nothing else to add, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.